You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
The truth is, what you want and what you need is already inside you. And if you dare take the risk to find it inside you, the phone rings, the email shows up, and suddenly that opportunity you wanted is right in front of you. Sounds crazy, but that's my experience.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Was It Chance, the podcast about embracing opportunity and taking intentional risk for your creative life. I'm Vickery.
I'm Alan Seals. Heather and I started off as two perfect strangers who met by chance and embraced opportunity. Listen in as we chat with other successful people about the risks they've taken to put themselves on a path to creative success.
That's Alan's Monday radio voice. Are you guys starting to notice the difference?
What I have different? What's my Tuesday voice? This is like this. On Tuesday, I'll talk like
it's a little less 1970s radio DJ. That's what it is. You heard that, right, Lee?
We can do like sweaty balls.
God only knows what he sounds like by Friday, you know, like, hello, hi
guys.
How you doing?
It's Alan.
Yeah, I've had 3 packs of cigarettes. I don't smoke. 3 packs of cigarettes figuratively by Friday, but oh God, listen in as we chat with others. Okay. Anyway, our guest today, you've heard him talking a little bit. It's Lee Zlotoff. Lee is an award-winning writer, producer, director of film and television, and in addition to creating the original MacGyver TV series, I'm so excited. He also wrote and directed the indie hit film The Spitfire Grill, which won the coveted Audience Award at the Sundance Film Festival, and has also become a successful musical with over 700 productions. More recently, he is also the author of the best-selling book, The MacGyver Secret. Connect your inner MacGyver and solve anything, as well as MacGyver Meltdown, the first installment of a new MacGyver fiction series. Lee is also the executive director of the MacGyver Foundation, which was funded by a portion of the proceeds from all the MacGyver projects. And now into the wonderful world of musical theater. He is the executive producer on the world premiere concept album for MacGyver the Musical. Oh my gosh, Lee, I'm so excited to talk to you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I think I should quit while I'm ahead. that sounded really impressive, you know. It's going to be downhill from here, people.
Is there anything else MacGyver left on the table?
Yeah, so the one new thing that's coming down the turnpike has to do with the MacGyver Secret book, which is a nonfiction book about sort of tapping into your subconscious to solve problems. And we're going to try and start a pilot program to use this to help veterans, both in the transition to civilian life and possibly even at some point to help with PTSD. Because as you may know, 1 out of every 3 or 4 homeless people in this country is a veteran. Mm-hmm. And the veteran suicide rate is somewhere between 1.5 to twice as frequent as it is among non-veterans. And these are serious problems that we as a nation should really be addressing. But now we can talk about fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it sounds like an incredible project. Keep us posted on all of that.
Yep.
We both have so many questions. We've been like side chatting, getting ready. We're so excited to be talking with you. And we made a little joke right before we started recording. It is remarkable how often people use MacGyver as an action
a verb,
as an action word.
Adverb? Yeah.
Yeah, adverb. I'm like, wait, what? Did I go to school? I did. Right? We're like, oh, I don't know. I got to go MacGyver or something to make that work. It's incredible what you've built. And I'm sure this is not a unique question, but we got to find out, like, where did this original idea come from back in the day?
Okay, so there is, I'll give you the real short version, okay? But I actually, because this question comes up quite a bit.
Of course it does.
On the MacGyver.com website, if you go searching around, I wrote out the entire story of how MacGyver came to be, because it wasn't like I just thought up this idea and then I went to a studio or a network and pitched it and they went great and then it became a TV show. I was actually hired by Paramount and Henry Winkler's company to write an action adventure show that they said had never been done before. And what had never been done before. So for various reasons, I took the job, even though I didn't know exactly what it was, had never been done before. And when they told me what had never been done before, I asked a couple of pointed writer questions. And then I was in the awkward position of having to say, there's a reason this has never been done before. and they said, what's that? And I said, I don't think it's going to work. And they went, what? And so I explained to them why their original concept didn't work. And they said, oh, well, then we already sold this. We're not going to unsell it. So you have to fix it. So I started coming up with various ideas that I thought would give them what they wanted and solve the problem. And the network kept rejecting them. And so finally, in desperation, I got all my writer friends in a room. I locked the door. I had every inebriant they could possibly want. And I said, we are not leaving this room till I have a great idea to get me out of this deal. And so I pitched everything that I had and said, the network just rejected all of it. And so I said, that's why you're here. I have nothing. And there was a long pause. And then one of my writer friends, and I honestly don't remember who it was, said, okay, great, let's go with that. I said, let's go with what? They said, let's go with nothing. I said, what are you talking about? They said, well, James Bond, he gets all those toys from Q at the beginning of every movie, right? And Indiana Jones, he's got the hat and the gun and the whip. What if our guy, he goes in there and he's got nothing? And there was another long pause, and I went,
oh, man, that's cool.
That's genius. That's genius. That's exactly right. And we had just done what the character was all about. We took nothing and we turned it into something. And so then we kept kicking it around. And, my dad gave me a Swiss Army knife when I was like 11 years old and said, keep this with you forever because it's the best tool you'll ever have. And to this day, I carry a Swiss Army knife with me everywhere I go. And from there, we just kind of talked it around. And the next thing I knew, I went to the studio and the network and I said, here's what we're going to do. We got a character. We're going to send him into a situation. He's got nothing. He's got to figure it out, make it up as he goes along. And I thought if we took the gun away, then he would have to use whatever was available. He couldn't just shoot back. And they went, sounds crazy. Let's see if the network will buy it. Pitched it to the network. They said, sounds interesting. I ran home. I wrote this pilot in like record time. The next thing I do, they picked it up, then it got turned into a series, and the rest is history.
And it's
wow,
friggin' MacGyver, and that is perfect.
Like how much in the script writing is? I mean, all of the science and the physics and the chemistry and everything was that all real? Because as a kid, I was like, oh, I got to remember all of this. I'm trying to like inventory all of that.
That was all real, but it wasn't me. I hired consultants. Okay. Who, I hired someone who had a degree in physics and chemistry and electronics and, and I said, okay, we got to come up with stuff. And sure enough, when the show got picked up and I didn't stay with the series, okay, and the writers called me and said, man, the stuff you did in the pilot, this is what ABC wants. We can't come up with this. I mean, we write stories. We're not. And I went, relax, take a deep breath. I'm going to give you the name of the consultants I used. You call them up, you pay them money, they'll help you. And that's kind of how that happened.
Oh, my gosh. That is so cool. Well, so the premise of this show is about intentional risk, right? Like, what do we do in our lives that feel risky, that lead to this path of success? And you said something that we've heard a lot from people, which is you got all of your friends in the room. How much of having this strong-knit community of people that you trust to challenge you, to push you, to not bullshit you, all of that has played a role in your creative success?
I think it's played an enormous role. First of all, I went to a small liberal arts college where you read and discussed the great books of the Western world for 4 years. That was all you did. It's called St. John's College. It's still there. It has 2 campuses. It's not a religious school, even though they call it St. John's College for some reason. But it was all seminar classes. It was all reading the books and discussing them and realizing that out of conversation came things that no individual would necessarily have reached by themselves. And so I learned that communication, collaboration, bouncing things off other people is one of the best ways to develop thoughts and ideas, because otherwise you're just listening to your own head, okay? And you may not be asking the questions that need to be asked, or challenges that you need in order to go, oh yeah, no, that's a good problem. How am I going to fix that? Okay, so that collaborative process, and look, by definition, pretty much Hollywood, film, television, they're all collaborations. I mean, you can have multiple writers, but then you're working with directors and actors and producers and designers and, all that kind of stuff. And when I work on a project now, I have a kind of rule of thumb, which is not all my ideas are good, not all good ideas are mine. And I will listen to the dumbest ideas from anybody, because they may yet come up with a brilliant idea that I wouldn't have thought of. And so it's like, I prepare myself if I'm producing or directing something. I prepare myself so well that I can afford to walk into the situation and be completely spontaneous and say, what do you guys think we should do right now? Okay? Because your job, certainly in the entertainment business and maybe in a lot of things, is to make the whole greater than the sum of the parts. And so if I'm producing or directing, my job is to get everybody's genius to contribute. It's not about me. It's about the magic that comes from everybody putting in their best thing. Because I know in Hollywood, you can shoot the script, you can shoot the budget, it can come in on time, and you can have nothing. Okay? How do you create that magic? And the answer is, you make everybody a citizen of the project, and you say, this is stone soup. I want to see what you're going to contribute to this soup. And at the end of the day, I've been very fortunate by taking that approach, because more often than not, the projects I work on have been very successful. So
that's really cool. I was looking.
It's really cool.
And I'm looking at some of your other credits too, and like Remington Steele, and you wrote a Perry Mason TV movie, and there's other like you're credited with, of course, the original MacGyver, the remake of MacGyver, The Lost Treasure of Atlantis, 1994. And it's just interesting to me that you've kind of continued, I guess, embracing these opportunities as they've come to you. And it sounds like through your network of friends, like Heather was saying, right, that it's allowed you to grow, and when the opportunities come back, you work with your friends and continue to create this new material. Is that something that you're consciously doing, or are you just sort of going with the flow when it presents itself?
I guess it's sort of both. It's sort of second nature now. I mean, I have co-writers on all the MacGyver fiction books. I had a co-writer on the MacGyver Secret because I needed someone who was literally a scientist, and a psychologist in creativity to say, look, nobody's going to listen to a TV writer about how to tap into your true creative self. So would you work on this with me? And she interviewed me for many, many hours and asked me all about this process that I was trying to sort of put into this book. And after many hours of interviews, I said her name was Colleen Seifert. She's a co-author on the MacGyver Secret. And I said, okay, Colleen, you've asked me every conceivable question 6 different ways. What do you think? She said, I think you just drove a truck through all the literature. Because when we study creativity, we do it in these tiny little, we take these tiny little slivers of things so we can do, really controlled studies on it. And you've been doing this real world for like 35 years in difficult situations. I mean, when you write for television, man, the deadlines are relentless and you got to be creative on a constant basis. And I sort of stumbled upon this methodology, or what I now call the MacGyver Secret. And so by definition now, when I start a project, I think, who do I want to work with on this? And who who are the voices that I can either share this with or that should be in here, because mine isn't the only voice that matters.
That's a really good way of looking at it. Yeah, because I was about to say, I think, Heather, we're probably going to say the same thing here. Yeah, like, because a similar mindset of the people that we enjoy being around, as well as that a rising tide lifts all ships. So if you're surrounding yourself with creative people, and I love to be around people who know more than I do about whatever we're talking about, because not only are we learning, but we're helping each other amplify whatever the goal is, whatever the message is. We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned for more of the episode.
I'm Gavin Whitehead, host of The Art of Crime, a history podcast about the unlikely collisions between true crime and the arts. Did you know that Roman emperor and aspiring actor Nero got the idea for how to assassinate his own mother from a special effect that he saw at the theater? Or about that time a child psychologist accused Lewis Carroll of being Jack the Ripper? Or how about the conspiracy theory that Freemasons poisoned Mozart for betraying their secrets in the magic flute? This is just a sampling of the stories we tell on The Art of Crime. The show profiles artists from around the world who worked in a variety of artistic media, from wig making to poetry, music hall to painting. As we meet each artist, we'll talk about who they were, why their art mattered, and the crimes they committed, or at least were accused of committing. Each new season explores a different theme. Subscribe to The Art of Crime wherever you get your podcasts.
23-year-old Walt Mendez finally got his dream job, working in show business. The only problem is his new boss, a low-level talent agent with rageaholic tendencies.
You're a nice person, Walt. That's going to be a problem. So listen, whatever your impulse is, do the opposite.
When she has a heart attack on his first day, leaving him alone, clueless and in charge, he discovers some questionable financial dealings, led by her dentist husband.
I'm literally doing root canals on anything with insurance.
And he turns to his ruthless predecessor for advice.
Walt, grow a pair. You're in the Hunger Games.
Soon, his shady ex-boyfriend resurfaces, coming on strong and making the job suddenly more attractive.
Am I making you nervous?
A little.
And it's turning you on, isn't it?
All heard through his headset at the office, Rolling Calls is a hilarious dark comedy starring Julie Halston, Richard Kind, Dan Rosales, Matt Doyle, Wesley Taylor, Luis Miranda, Aaron Davey, Brittany Mack, Andrea Macassette, and more. Get ready for Rolling Calls at bpn.fm/Rolling Calls or everywhere you listen to podcasts.
And now we're back.
And I will say, you know, you can go to MacGyver.com. There's all sorts of stuff and free stuff about the MacGyver Secret there. But in essence, what the MacGyver Secret says is you have more genius and resources inside of you than you know. And all this method allows you to do is tap into those whenever you want them and whenever you need them for any problem you're facing. So we think our consciousness is mostly our waking mind, what we call our conscious mind, okay? And that our subconscious is this thing that maybe shows up a little bit when we're asleep. It couldn't be more wrong. Your conscious is the size of a quarter. Your subconscious is the size of the state you live in, okay? I mean, and we just don't see it because when you're awake, your conscious mind pushes everything else out. But the truth is, the best decisions, what we call our gut instinct and all that, is really your unconscious or subconscious. And it's there, and it wants to help you all the time. You just don't know how to hear it. Most people tend to hear it, and this is how I discovered it, when you're either driving or taking a shower. Okay. Oh, I had this idea in the shower. Why do you think that happens? It happens because your conscious mind has to pay attention to what it's doing. You don't want to get soap in your eyes. You don't want to slip. You don't want to get water up your nose. So your conscious mind is paying attention moment to moment, and your subconscious could say, hey, sweetheart, you know that problem you've been struggling with? What if you tried this? Or what if you did that? And you go, wow, what a great idea. Same thing in driving, okay? When you're driving, it's second nature. You know how to drive a car. But you have to pay attention to how fast you're going, where you're going, when to turn, who's in front of you, who's behind you. You got to really be paying attention. So your conscious mind is so occupied that your subconscious mind could suddenly pop through and say, hey, Lee, I got a great idea for you.
Yeah.
And I just found a way to do that without having to drive and take a shower.
That's the secret sauce.
That's it.
So if we go back to Little Lee, not Little League, Little Lee, when you're young and what I know, sometimes when I'm near Alan, I can't help but channel my inner dad jokes. So
I don't blame you.
What do you consciously remember as the first time you took intentional risk, where you were like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to trust this.
First time I took intentional risk. I'm going to tell you a story, okay? Because this is a true story. When I was 5 years old, I kind of had an epiphany, which has really sort of guided my life, right? I think it will answer your question. I lived in a suburban neighborhood, and my brother and I would walk to school, and all the kids would gather on the corner. We'd walk up this hill, and we had to walk along this really busy boulevard to get to school. You would never let kids walk along a boulevard like that today. But in those days, it was like, go to school, that was it. Okay. And I remember walking along and seeing all these cars whizzing back and forth. And I went, where are they going? And then I thought, oh, they must be going to work. And then I thought, well, why are they going to work? And then I said, oh, they must be going to work so they can make money. And I thought, what do they want money for? And I thought, well, they must want money so they can buy things like houses and cars. And I went, okay, but then why do they want to buy houses and cars? And then I thought, well, it must make them feel good to have houses and cars. But then I thought, but the cars and the houses, those are inanimate things. They don't have feelings with them. So the feelings that you get from having a house and a car must somehow be inside you. So why don't you just give yourself those feelings, and then you don't have to bother with the house and the car and the job. Now I'm 5 years old.
Wow.
Okay. So
existential 5-year-old.
But from that I realized, which is the truth I have lived by now for most of my life, everything you want is already inside you. And if you can find it inside you, it shows up in the world. We're still in the hunter-gatherer mindset. What I want in the world is out there, and I have to sort of go out and get it. I got to chase it down. I got to kill it. I got to skin it. I got to throw it over my shoulder and hope that I can get it back to the campsite before another animal comes along and takes it away from me. Guess what? We're not hunter-gatherers anymore, okay? So why are we still using that mindset when the truth is what you want and what you need is already inside you? And if you dare take the risk to find it inside you, the phone rings, the email shows up, and suddenly that opportunity you wanted is right in front of you. Sounds crazy, but that's my experience. I call it the difference between reality and appearances. It looks like the sun goes around the earth every single day, but the sun doesn't go around the earth. We know that. The earth is moving, the sun is standing still.
Yeah.
Looks like what we want is outside of us. Turns out that's the appearance. The reality is it's really inside of us. Sounds crazy, but there you go.
No, I love
That's science.
it. I mean, so Alan and I will often talk about the quantum, and this is something I do a lot of work on, and it's, your show's MacGyver, it's not Quantum Leap, but we're close.
They came out around the same time.
Yeah, same culture, same subculture.
No, but this weekend, it was Friday actually, and I cannot stop going down the rabbit hole. I just read about the Nobel Prize who went to the scientists that discovered that the universe doesn't actually exist. We see it like
we're in a simulation.
We're in a simulation.
It's a projection. Yeah. Yes,
it's a projection. Hieroglyph. What's the word I'm looking for?
Hieroglyphics.
Hieroglyphics.
Yeah, I think they call it a hierograph, but yes, hieroglyphic.
Oh, okay.
It's not there. We're experiencing it in real time because it feels real to us, but it is all a simulation. It doesn't exist, which is what you're saying, right? Which is why when you go back inside and you look for it in you, then you visualize it. and then you create it.
Yes.
Because you're creating it anyway.
We think we are separate and distinct things. I'm separate from you, and you're separate from him. But the truth is, we are all connected. It's all connected. And if you step into the connectedness of things, you will discover more than if you say, no, it's all separate stuff. And let's face it, we know from science, you knock on this table, you say, oh, it's solid. Yeah, but is it? Because when you go deeper and deeper and deeper, it's really mostly empty space of particles that are just spinning around really fast. And you go, what? But that's crazy. I mean, if I hit my head against it, it's going to hurt. Yes, I understand. But it's still mostly...
your perception of what that pain is.
That's right. It's mostly empty space. So you go, oh, interesting. Okay, so what is real? Well, reality is what, to a large extent, we choose to make it. I mean, obviously, there are people in this country who see one set of realities and another group of people who see a very different set of realities. And you go, in some sense, they're sort of both right. But in another sense, we have to choose one if we're going to navigate this thing we call life.
That's a really cool way of approaching everything.
Everything.
And everything, period. But channeling that back into your writing, into your career, into your creativity, which is all one and the same because you are a creative person as your career path, right? Do you, I guess, looking back at the stuff you wrote decades ago versus what you're involved with now, has it changed over time? Or were you always sort of doing this same sort of method, the same sort of tapping into the unconscious without realizing it, or I guess has it changed over time as you've been able to uncover what it is that
once I was able to quantify or define this method, okay, which I used long before anybody said to me, you should write this down and put it in a book and share it with the rest of the world. I was using, once I got that, I went, oh my God, this is the key. Okay. I will never struggle to create another thing again in my life. All I have to say is, what do I want? Ask my subconscious, get out of the way, and wait for the answer to show up. I mean, it was really pretty straightforward after that. But to speak more to, I think, the essence of your podcast and your show, I always moved towards things that I hadn't done before that were difficult or challenging, because I went, all right, I've done this. I know how to do that. Oh, I created MacGyver. I can write action adventure for the rest of my life. And by the way, Hollywood would be only too happy to pay me to write action adventure for the rest of my life. But it's not interesting to me because I did it once, and I thought I did it pretty well. So, what's next? And so, here's Spitfire Grill, which is this small, indie feature about 3 women pretty much in this dying town in Maine. And it couldn't be further from MacGyver. And yet it won the Audience Award at the Sundance Film Festival, and then went on to become one of the most successful musicals in the country because it got turned into a musical, not by me, but by somebody else. And there, since 2001, I think there have been over 700 productions of this musical.
Wow.
On the Spitfire Grill. And you go, okay, I didn't make that happen, but there it is. So, and maybe that's partly why I decided, you know what? Maybe it's time for a MacGyver musical. Maybe we should try and see what that looks like. Oh, and let's really roll the dice by having the lead role of MacGyver be cast out of the audience in every performance. I mean, it's it's nuts. It's nuts. Everybody who I said it to went, are you crazy? And I went, I know it sounds crazy, but it's MacGyver, and I bet we could pull this off.
Well, talk more about that, because I know that I was talking with Brandon Victor Dixon, who's part of the cast album, talking with him a couple weeks ago, and he was giving me a little bit of the insight, but I want to hear it from you, where the idea has morphed out of, right? And this is something that is highly, highly unusual for a show.
So risky. Talk about intentional risk.
So risky. Especially at this level of budget, right? We're talking Broadway. We're talking the Olympian of theater, the Olympics of theater. And I guess, first of all, why? Second, how? Third, when? Fourth, where do I sign up?
Okay.
Yeah. Alan is like, I have to get picked. I have to
I gotta
get
do
picked.
it. I gotta do it. I gotta do it.
Okay. So the why started with MacGyver was one of those unusual shows that the whole family watched together. So I discovered this because, when I would meet people going through life and they would find out created MacGyver, they would immediately say, oh man, my dad and I, my mom, my sister, we sat on the daybed in the basement. And I mean, they were there. They instantly went back to that sense memory. And I realized, so television usually divided the family. Dad, this is a simplification, but dad liked sports. Mom liked the dramas and the soap operas. The kids liked the cartoons and the comedies. And everybody really wanted something different from television. But MacGyver was one of those few shows where dad went, I want to see what this guy's going to come up with. Mom said, he's really cute and he doesn't use a gun. And the kids said, wait, you're going to watch this show together and we can watch with you? Yeah, it's like, damn, we are there. Okay, so I said, of all the MacGyver projects that I'm going to do for the rest of my life, for whatever reason, I want to have one that people can experience together, a family, a community. And I said, but I got to find a unique way to do it. And I went to a friend of mine who was a consultant for Hollywood, long story, who unfortunately has since passed, but her name is credited on the script and in every playbill for the show. Her name is Melissa Havard. And she said, there's this show called Point Break Live where they cast the lead out of the audience. And you got to go see this show, because if there was ever a show where the lead should be cast out of the audience, it should be MacGyver. So I went to see the show. Now, in that show, they pretty much humiliate the person who gets cast as Johnny Utah, okay? And I said, I don't want to humiliate the person. We want to actually elevate this person from the audience. We want to lift them up and empower them, okay? And I saw the show and I said, Melissa, you are absolutely right. I'm going to do a show where we cast the lead out of the audience. And so what we do before every show, we have a 10-minute audition. The whole audience is there. We have a 10-minute audition. People volunteer. 3 or 4 people volunteer to be MacGyver. Believe me, the people who want to be MacGyver are like you, Alan. They come in, leather jackets, flannel shirts. They got Swiss Army knives. They got duct tape. I mean, they are ready to be MacGyver. Okay, we have had men, women, transgender, 18-year-olds, 85-year-olds. It makes no difference. And what we do is we do this 10-minute audition. We make all of these contestants act a line, sing a line, and dance. And then by their applause, the audience decides who's going to be MacGyver. And as soon as we pick MacGyver, we go, great, everybody, sit down. We're starting the show.
Wow. So Alan, you need to stack the audience.
What?
Alan needs to stack the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's great for fraternities. Like, you want to be MacGyver, bring your whole fraternity, and then you can clap louder than anybody else, and you get to be MacGyver.
All right, one more quick break. Hang on a second.
Hello, attractive and discerning podcast listener. Have you lost weight? I'm Tom Allen Robbins, creator and writer of Twits in Love, a steampunk distraction. It's a radio comedy here on the Broadway Podcast Network.
And I'm Michael Urie, also known as Cyril Chippington Smythe, your favorite boob and the star of Twits.
We're here to tell you that in addition to being a podcast, Twits in Love is now available as a real live hold-in-your-hands book on Amazon.
Or e-reader.
Yes, you can get it on a Kindle.
Kindle.
But you can also listen to it here on the Broadway Podcast Network, performed by an unbelievable cast.
Aw, shucks. Join me and a slew of amazing actors like Christian Borle, Mary Testa, Dakin Matthews, Kira Allen, James Monroe Iglehart, Lilias White, and Anne Harada in a story about the world's richest man, Cyril Chippington Smythe, his steam-powered valet Bentley, and his chinless cousin Binky, as they navigate a dystopian world in search of love and meaning.
Listen to Twits in Love, available now everywhere you find podcasts, and make sure to learn more about getting the book by visiting bpn.fm/twits.
Wait, where do I go?
bpn.fm/twits, you boob. Yes. Or you can go to twitschronicles.com.
Gotcha.
All right, here's the rest of the episode.
And the way we do this, the how, okay, we have a lot of tricks up our sleeve, but the main one is we literally have a person who we call McQ, who leads the MacGyver around through the show and has all their lines and or lyrics on a cue card. And when it's time, they flash the cue card, and MacGyver, whoever it is, reads their lines. Okay? Now, you would think this is going to be incredibly distracting to have somebody walking around with this person through the entire show. The craziness is, after 10 minutes, nobody sees that person. Yeah.
They're the puppeteer.
They're so on the edge of the seat as to what the MacGyver is going to do or say that they don't even see that person there. And you would think that's crazy, but it's like with little kids and a puppet. You put a puppet on your hand and you do this, and you know, when you say to a little kid, by the way, this is a trick you can use if you have children out there, people. Okay, puppets, amazing. 2 to like 7. You put a puppet on your hand. You say to the kid, go to bed. The kid says, no, you're not going to bed. I'm not going to bed. You put a puppet on your hand, and the puppet says, I'm tired. Can we go to bed? The kid goes, great, let's go to bed. Why? Why do puppets work? It works if let's take a bath. No, I'm not taking a bath. Put a puppet on your hand. It could be a sock with 2 eyes on it, guys. And you go, I want to take a bath. Can I please take a bath with you? The kid goes, yep, let's go take a bath. It's like magic. Because kids are living in a fictional universe anyway. We're the ones who keep imposing reality on them. Yeah. And the minute you bring them into that fiction, they are like, great, now you're living in my world. Let's go do whatever we got to do. So, yes, in this case, it's not dissimilar. They are, we're the person leading them around is like the puppeteer.
Right. And we see what we want to see. You said that earlier.
And we see what we want to see.
Yeah.
And crazy as it is, when everything goes exactly as planned, the audience loves it. And if the MacGyver for some reason messes up or screws up or gets the line wrong, the audience loves it even more. I mean, you would think, what? And they go, yes, this is real. The cast suddenly stops and goes, did you mean to say this? And they go, look at the card again, and oh yeah, and the audience just goes crazy. So go figure.
That is so much fun.
I want to do this so badly.
It's fun. It is just fun. So anyway, we've done 2 productions. We did a workshop production really just to see, can this really work? We did that in 2020, just before the pandemic shut everything down. And then after the pandemic, give or take, in February and March of 2022, we did the world premiere at the Stages Theater in Houston. And we got rave reviews. We got sellout crowds, standing ovations. And the Houston press gave us their award for Best New Musical. So it's and at the time, I and my partners looked at it and went, this is a hit, man. We just this has to keep going. And that's when I started to get approached by producers to say, you should do a concept album. And I said, wow, that's great. What's a concept album? Because I'm all new to this. And they explained, it's a way to publicize your show and maybe raise additional funds from the sale of the album to keep the whole thing going. So I'd never produced a musical before. I'd certainly never produced an album before, but now we've produced this album. Here it goes. It'll be released, next Friday, January 27th, and we'll just see what the world says. But it's a hoot. The whole thing is just a hoot.
It's so full of dad jokes too, which I think is really
right up Alan's alley. Yeah,
it's so up my alley. It's like you MacGyvered my heart. They got a little love story going on in there, and I forget what some of the other lyrics were that Heather, you and I were texting each other. I'm like, this is the best thing ever because it makes fun of itself in such the perfect way to realize like we're taking ourselves seriously, but just enough. We're still having fun.
Well, our kind of phrase or whatever you want to call a motto is we have fun with MacGyver and with the MacGyver who's playing the lead. We don't make fun of MacGyver, okay?
Yes.
We don't, it's not to humiliate that person. It's to show everybody, and by the end of the show, most of the audience goes, I may not want to do it, but I could have done that, okay? Yeah. And they walk out literally high as kites because they think, I could have done that. And they feel empowered. And that's the whole point of the show and the whole point of MacGyver, which is you can change the world. You can dare to do things that you think you can't do. But you got to challenge yourself, and you got to be willing to step out and take those risks. Because right now, with the world the way it is, the leaders of the world are not going to fix it. No. We are going to fix it. And the sooner we wake up to that truth, the sooner it gets fixed.
Why, I guess, do this at the timing that you are doing this? Because prior to the pandemic, you're doing all this stuff out of town. That's fine. Pandemic shuts all of theater down, all of Broadway. And then coming back, we still have some of the biggest shows. Like I say, Company won the Tony for Best Revival and then a month later closed. So this is a very risky time to do something like this that is already a risky format. So where does the chutzpah come from to push this forward to where we are now?
Well, MacGyver was certainly one of the first, if not the only, action-adventure heroes who didn't use a gun. Yeah. So, that was a chance, okay? You went, what happens if we take the gun away? It seems like such a simple thing, and yet it created a profound change. And this character, I've traveled all over the world, okay? Sometimes for work, sometimes for pleasure. I meet people, and when they know my relationship to MacGyver, they look at me and they go, that wasn't just another TV character. You changed people's lives.
Absolutely.
Because they saw themselves in this character and they went, you know what? If he can do that, I should be able to figure out what I'm dealing with. It's not to say Baywatch was huge, okay? Rambo was huge. It's not the same. MacGyver touched people in a very different way. Yeah. So, is it a risk? Am I up against difficult odds because of where the theater world is? Yes, all of that is true. So what? Okay, MacGyver got where he got. I don't take credit for that. It's like, to me, it's like, you have a kid who goes to college, he grows up, he does something amazing, and you go, or she does something amazing, and you go, well, I'm proud of my child, but they did it. I didn't do it. Okay, I created it. I gave them the blueprint. The rest, man, the universe, the people around the world embraced this character. They made MacGyver a verb. They made MacGyver a global meme. I didn't do that. So it's like, okay, so let's just put it back out there and see what happens. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. It's like, you can't be afraid to fail. If you're afraid to fail, you'll never do anything. So I failed many times. Everybody who's successful in Hollywood, trust me, has failed. All right? Nobody just was a success from day one and never had to look back. It doesn't happen that way. It just looks like it happens that way because they're successful now. But, you got to be willing to take those risks and sometimes jump off a cliff if you're going to learn how to fly.
Absolutely. I love what you said about people being able to see themselves in it. And my heart got all mushy when you're like, look, what happens when we take away the gun? And we won't get into any of that, but I heard you. And I think it's really beautiful. But it goes back to what we said at the very top of the show, which is we use it as that verb. Like, oh, we're going to MacGyver it. It's been in stand-up comedy acts. Like, this guy saves the world with the tampon and some chewing gum, right? Like, but it's amazing to have this conversation with you and see this all come full circle, because what MacGyver does and what you do and what you're showing people they can do is just slow down, see what's available to you, and create something.
Yeah.
And it's so cool.
The core values of MacGyver are very simple. Avoid conflict, because conflict just leads to more conflict. Okay. So not using a gun, don't look to start a fight, because even if you win the fight, the house is still on fire, guys. Okay. Number two, that creativity, that resourcefulness. How do you turn what you have into what you need? Whether you're an individual, a community, a country, a globe. We are all in this together now. We can talk about our country being more powerful than that country. It's nonsense. Okay? Somebody got sick somewhere. Let's say China. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Somebody got sick somewhere, and 3 months later, the whole world was shut down. Okay? That tells us we are all in this together. We are all connected. You can try and go live on a mountaintop somewhere, but it's not going to last, you know? There's no country in the world that can say we have all the resources we will ever need for the rest of time. We can wall ourselves off. The rest of you can go to hell. We'll be just fine. Doesn't work that way anymore, okay? The climate is changing. The planet is changing. We're all in this together, all right? So, A, avoid conflict. B, figure out how to turn what you have into what you need. And MacGyver, no matter how life-threatening the situation was, he always maintained a sense of humor and humility, okay? Because a laughing and open mind is a whole lot more likely to come up with a good solution than a frightened and angry mind, okay? So, number one, avoid conflict. Two, figure out how to turn what you have into what you need. And for God's sakes, try and maintain a sense of humor and humility, because that's your best shot for surviving or overcoming whatever you're dealing with.
Was it hard to find that actor to embody this? Like, Richard Dean Anderson is MacGyver.
He totally
is.
He's forever.
Like, everything you just described is what we see on screen. So were you looking for this from the beginning, and Richard walks in and you're like, that's it?
I was not involved in the casting. I was just the guy who wrote the pilot. Okay, but God bless him, that guy totally embodied that character. I mean, he was a soap opera actor before that, okay? But he came along and he had that kind of relaxed, laid-back attitude of, I wonder if there's a way to figure this out or fix this or whatever it is. And he was just perfect for the role. And listen, if it weren't for him and the writers and the producers and the directors and the actors, but really, if it wasn't for him really kind of embodying that character so beautifully, I don't know that this all would have happened. But it did. So there you go. Again, I mean, you take your chances, and sometimes the universe goes, we're with you, dude. Let's go.
Yeah. And if the universe doesn't say that, then you pick up what you learned from it and you build something else.
You move on. That's exactly right.
All of the things you've produced from MacGyver, at what point did you go, oh, this is more than a TV pilot that I wrote. I've got to build off of this.
Yes. Okay. So here's the answer to that question. MacGyver, the original series, ran for 7 seasons. At the end of those 7 seasons, they were going to make some TV movies. And so I reached out to the Writers Guild and said, you have the schedule of what you get paid if this happens or that happens, you know. We have what we call a minimum basic agreement. The Writers Guild does, the Directors Guild, the Screen Actors Guild. Okay. And it turned out that the studio had screwed up and all the rights had reverted to me.
Oh, wow.
This never happens in Hollywood.
Wow.
But it happened to me with MacGyver.
Wow.
And so somewhere along the line, 2 things happened. I said, okay, I have 4 grown children now. I have 4 grandchildren now. And I looked at this century and I went, okay, this is a critical century. If we get this century right, this thing we call civilization may survive. If we don't get this century right, I'm not so sure that's the case. And let's face it, there have been a lot of civilizations on this planet that thought they were it, you know, and they're gone. The Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Incas, the Mayans, the British, you go down the list. There have been a lot of impressive civilizations on this planet. They're gone. Now we have this civilization. But when you have children and grandchildren, you think, okay, what can I give them? How can I help them? And by the way, everybody else's children and grandchildren. And I went, if this thing MacGyver is mine, and it offers these great management tools, avoid conflict, figure out how to turn what you have into what you need, and try and maintain a sense of humor and humility. I said, it feels like destiny is saying, you got to bring this back out to the world and remind people that they have this capability and these are values that they can use to survive this century. Because I'm older now. I'm not going to necessarily live to face the challenges that my children and certainly my grandchildren face. So I said, you know what? If this brand is mine, I'm going to do my best to bring it back and to let people know that these are tools they can use. And if you go to our website, the first thing you see written on a piece of duct tape, it says there's a MacGyver in everyone and anyone can be MacGyver. And that's what we're about.
That's so beautiful.
I'm speechless.
That is so beautiful.
Spectacular. I just adore you. What a gift you are. Holy shit. So cool.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Where do you...
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Alan. I know we have to... I don't want to...
No, I was just going to... I know. I was just going to wrap up and kind of close it out by asking where you go. Where's your happy place to bring you into your most creative? What do you do when you are feeling any sort of writer's block or lack of whatever the next step might be?
Yeah. So again, not to promote this, but the way the MacGyver Secret works is you're facing a question or a problem, you write it down. I have a whiteboard right over there in my office. Okay.
Made out of gum and
two
Tampa.
actually. Yeah, no, it's just a regular old whiteboard. Okay. And so when I go, okay, what's the question? What's the problem? I write it down. And then I go do something else. I wash the dishes. I go for a walk. Okay. I write emails. I do mind-numbing things. And I just don't think about it. And after a certain amount of time, then I come back and I say to my subconscious, okay, what do you got for me? And then I just start writing. I mean, it doesn't matter what I write. I could write a recipe. I could write the Star Spangled Banner. And within like 30 seconds, those ideas just start pouring out of me. So I don't get writer's block because I don't worry about where are the answers to the ideas going to come from. I know where they're going to come from. Okay? And so that happy creative place is a place I don't see, and all I have to do is get out of the way and let it do its thing, okay? Because it wants to create, it wants to help me, and it's got better answers than my conscious mind could come up with in 100 years. So it's like, oh, let go. Take the step in. What is it I want to do? What's the theme of this story? What's the heart of this piece? What's the drive behind this? What should it be? So forth and so on. And then trust your subconscious is going to give you that answer because you said, you're going to give me that answer. And then just go do something else and don't think about it. And when you come back, the answer is going to be sitting there for you, waiting like on a platter. Okay? And you go, oh, thank you. This is beautiful. Can I use it? Yes, that's why I just gave it to you. Help yourself. You got another question? As a matter of fact, I do. Great. Why don't you write that down and I'll answer that one too.
I love it. I mean, the fact of the matter is we're calling it the MacGyver Secret. You're calling it the MacGyver Secret because MacGyver is the name that everybody knows. But this is the Lee Secret. And this is how you've built your life. This is how you've done your things. And it's pretty incredible.
And it takes all the stress out of it. So it's the stress isn't on me because I've got this secret partner, okay, who is happy to give me the answers that I need whenever I need them. It's like on demand, and that's how I survived the whole television writing experience. It's like, most of my contemporaries, they're bitter. They hate Hollywood. And it's like, no, I had a great time, because I never put that stress on my head, and I just did the best that I could, and it turned out it was usually better than not. And so I had a great time, and I'm still having a great time,
Very Zen, very Buddhist.
Yeah, good
of
for you.
I
love it. Remind folks the links, how they can find you, your work, the MacGyver stuff.
Yeah, so the easiest link is simply MacGyver.com. That's it. Everything we doing with MacGyver is all on that website, the foundation, the musical, the fiction book, the non-fiction book. You can find it all there, okay? And you just wander around, and the backstory of how MacGyver got created is there. It's all there. Go get lost in the MacGyver site, and you're bound to find something that goes, oh, this is interesting. So that's the easiest way to do it.
Perfect.
Yep.
Will do. Lee, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Appreciate it. Good luck with everything. We're going to be in the audience, and I'm going to cheer for Alan. So
that's right. You better be loud, Heather.
So loud. We're going to be so loud. I'll bring my friends.
Bring it on. We're ready.
Lee.
Lee
Zlotoff. Dude, like, that conversation took a turn in a direction I did not expect out of your TV MacGyver creative dude. He's such a like. I picture him naked in the desert with bongos next to Matthew McConaughey.
Lee, if you're listening, don't take that personal. No, he's
with a fig leaf. I mean, I'm not picturing him naked. I mean, he's got a fig leaf on, but
he's so cool and so chill. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's what we are all trying to get to all the time.
I know. That's what I mean. Like I said, just this coming in with the idea of what I know of the creative types and the people who are successful in the TV and film and theater industry, and he just breaks that mold in such a good way. It was incredible to talk to him.
What I loved is, so he wasn't supposed to have the name MacGyver. That was a massive mistake.
Yeah, the rights to it. Yeah,
the rights to it, and he didn't know it for a long time. And then he's like, okay, well, if I have this, then I sort of have a responsibility to use it for the greater good of all the people. And
MacGyver is a tool for good. I agree.
It's so cool. Yes, we have to go to can we get an entire crew of Was It Chance audience members and past guests to join us for one specific show of MacGyver on Broadway so that we can get Alan on the stage.
God. Oh my God.
We'll have to try and orchestrate that.
Oh my God. I will. I mean, I was going to say I'll pay for everyone's tickets, but that might be hefty.
We'll throw you a little party after. How about that?
All right.
A little party.
Well, that'll be my Broadway debut, you know? You gotta make a
party.
it. Yeah. Well, I love the idea of MacGyver the musical. I mean, taking the concept of anyone can do this, which is the point of the show in the first place, and putting it into a medium where literally anyone can do it. It's the best thing ever.
With chewing gum and a tampon? Yeah.
Chewing gum and a tampon and a Broadway stage, and you've got a musical.
No, it was really cool. And I think y'all should check out Lee's book. I said this, and he kind of sheepishly was like, no, but it's the MacGyver way. It's really the Lee way. This guy has been doing this sort of detached surrender. Think about what you want, manifest it, step away, do your thing, come back. Shit is going to blow up. It's going to happen. It's going to be amazing. He's been doing it since he was 5, which was an incredible story.
Mm-hmm. Detached Surrender is also the name of my band, by the way, but that's another conversation.
You're such a dad. Such a dad joke. Every dad on the planet has made that's my band name joke.
Oh, come on. I mean, it doesn't get old for a reason. It's the name of my memoirs. How about that?
All right, folks.
Yeah, so you're right. Like he cashed in on not cashed in. That's a wrong way of saying it. He used the brand of MacGyver to amplify this method that has been working for him, and the name MacGyver gets attention. It's a global phenomenon.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It really is.
It really is. So we want to know, how are you showing up and doing this stuff? What really resonated? I loved the whole episode. So listeners, what really resonated with you, and how are you going to use that to manifest your own creative success in the future? Come back and let us know. Alan, how can they share information with us and tell us what's going on in their brains?
They can find us on the social medias, on Instagram, Was It Chance, at Was It Chance Podcast, at gmail.com, or, slip into our DMs and shoot us a self-addressed stamp envelope. Those are all the sweepstakes from the 80s.
Alan needs a little break. He needs a nap.
Oh my God, I need a nap. It's been a couple of weeks. Anyway.
We really do. We want to hear. Find us on Instagram. Send us an email. Listen to the show. Tell your friends about the show. Rate, review the show. Follow, subscribe wherever you're listening. We have a lot of cool stuff coming up this year. And if you listen to the recap, we had a lot of cool stuff last year. So stick with us. You've been listening to Was It Chance, the podcast about embracing opportunity and taking intentional risk for your creative life. I'm Heather Vickery.
And I'm Alan Seals.
Bye.
Bye.